Ile winien jeden do dawca wolno dem winien chłoły Watymechaja dem do to der winien muraszyszyn befo dela wy oszy outreach story to czytania zytane na lejszu myśli.
Good evening, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. Welcome to one people, one heart, an evening of unity and inspiration. On behalf of all of the rabbis and rebbesins of the Chabad centers in Minnesota, it is really a delight to be here with you and to welcome all of you here this evening. We're all here tonight because we have been recipients of that gift. We have received that match, whether directly from the Rebbe or through the Rebbe's teachings, through the Rebbe's guidance, through the Rebbe's emissaries. We have received that match, that love, that perspective on Judaism to ignite our souls, to ignite our neshamas with a passion for Judaism, to be able to shine with the beauty and the glow and the warmth of Judaism. And that is why we're here tonight, to say thank you to that gift that we have received from the Rebbe. In 1 week from tonight will be the 3rd of Tammuz, and this year marks 30 years since the Rebbe's physical passing. Our sages tell us, Shloshim lekoach. Our sages tell us that the number 30 is connected to koach, the strength. And that is really what this evening is all about. Tonight we're here to draw strength from the Rebbe, from the Rebbe's teachings, draw strength from each other, and hopefully, in turn, to be able to share that light and that strength with all those around us. So friends, we'll begin our program this evening with that which is foremost on our hearts and on our minds. Our brethren in the Holy Land, in the land of Israel, will begin our program with a prayer, Psalm 123, that will be recited by the Rebbe's first shliach, first emissary to the Upper Midwest, Rabbi Moshe Feller, who will lead us in Psalm 123. You can follow along on the screen in Hebrew, and then it will be on the screen in English. Before we begin the prayer, as we recite the words of this prayer, let us have in mind all of those that are still held in captivity, all of the hostages, that they should be freed once and for all. Those that are alive should remain alive and go back to their families healthy and well. Those who were viciously murdered should be able to receive the dignity to receive a proper Jewish burial in their homeland. Have in mind the fighters of the IDF. God should grant them success, keep them away from harm, and grant them success and victory in a swift and quick way, and instill fear into the hearts of our enemies that they shouldn't even think of starting up with the Jewish people. God should give blessings of health for all those that have been injured, those that are suffering, those that have lost loved ones. And God should bless all of the people of Israel, all of the Jewish people throughout the world, and usher in that era of ultimate peace. May we merit to see that yet tonight.
Yeramaway, Elecho, Nosasi, Enai, IAP, Pasamayi, Nayam, Kane Shivka, Ella, Givita, Kane, no, Eloheinu, Akshichoneinu, Choneinu, Adonai, Choneinu, Kirav Shavanu Buz, Rabbi, Yishtovo Nafshenu, Allah Gatamani, Abu Zugay.
Join it together, you can see it on the
A song of ascents to you I lift my eyes, you who dwells in heaven. Behold, as the eyes of servants looking to the hand of their masters, as the eyes of a maid looking to the hand of her mistress, so are our eyes looking to God our God, until he is gracious to us. Be gracious to us, God. Be gracious to us. We are fully sated with disgrace. Our soul is overly sated with jeers from those who live at ease, from the scorn of the arrogant.
Thank you. You make me see them. Tonight, it's not a lecture. It's not a formal get-together. What we're having here tonight is a Hasidic Farbringen. A Farbringen means when people come together. So what do you need to have a Farbringen? First and foremost, you need people. And thank God, we have that in abundance tonight. What a beautiful, wonderful group of people that are all here. Really, thank you all for being here tonight. I would like to Now I'd like to make a special mention also of one of the Rebbe's earlier emissaries who were sent to Minnesota, senior rabbi in St. Paul, Rabbi Usher Diamongold. A long, healthy, many more years. Gesundheit Heit. Thank you for being here with us. So you have people. Then you need food. Now, unlike many of you have been with us before, our custom is that you need to have extra food. I don't know what happened to our caterers this time, but in case your plate wasn't as full as it should have been, our sincere apologies. Come back next month at the Midrash and we'll give you a double portion. So you have to have food. Top of all of it, you have a l'chaim. So friends, please lift your glasses. If they're empty, you can fill them with something that you have on your table. And let's say a l'chaim together. There's an old Hasidic adage that what a Hasidic get-together, what a Farbringen can accomplish, is even greater than that which the guardian angel Michael can accomplish. And many great blessings were brought to fruition through heartfelt blessings given to each other at the l'chaim. So friends, let's raise our glasses together at this momentous occasion. Let us say a l'chaim to each other, l'chaim, that we should all be blessed with everything that we need. Good health, robust health. I'll take this opportunity to make a special l'chaim to our dear friend, Rebbe Eliezer Ben Friedel, that he should be gesund and stark and live many, many long, healthy years. And all those who need blessings for good health should be healthy and well. L'chaim to that. L'chaim that we should have an abundance of wealth to be able to do all the good things that we want to do. L'chaim that we should have happy, joyous, meaningful relationships. We should have nachas from our children, and those that are waiting to be blessed with children should have children. nachas from our grandchildren, not me, but those of you that have nachas from your grandchildren, and only good things for all of the Jewish people here in the Twin Cities, throughout the world, and the Holy Land. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. And also at the Hasidic upbringing, where you have is Hasidic melodies. So let's join in together in a beautiful melody of Ani Ma'amin that will be led by the singer Shulam Lemmer. He's not here in person, but we have a video of him singing beautifully the Ani Ma'amin. Let's join in. We're fortunate here in the Twin Cities to have a really incredible and wonderful Jewish community. Don't you think so? Yes, we really do. So many gems, so many wonderful people, kind-hearted people, good people. I remember before I moved to Minnesota, I heard about this thing called Minnesota Nice as a negative. I've only seen it as a positive. People are nice. It's a wonderful place, and especially the Jewish community is really fabulous. And then in addition to all the gems, we have pillars in our community, people who dedicate their life, their time, their energy to helping the community, education, communal activism, Torah study, organizations of kindness and welfare, so many wonderful organizations. But tonight, we're fortunate to have a person who's both a gem of a person and a pillar in our community. Mrs. Karen Burton has dedicated her life to Jewish education. For many years, the director at the Aleph School, and now the director of Jewish Beginnings, the preschool under the leadership of Rabbi Shalom Mahmoudi Brooks. Professional, and under Karen's leadership and under the Brooks vision, this school has grown in just 2 years from 6 students to over 50 students enrolled for the coming school year. So this evening we'll have the honor and pleasure to hear from Karen of how the Rebbe has impacted her life and her reflections on her personal encounter, her husband as well, her personal, her family's encounter with the Rebbe. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the director of Jewish Beginnings, Mrs. Karen Burton.
Thank you, Rabbi Silverstein, for your warm introduction. I feel so very privileged and honored to have been asked to share my Chabad Lubavitch journey with all of you tonight on this, the 30th anniversary of Rabbi Menachem Schneerson's Yortzeit. My journey began way back in the 1960s in a then small city, now a large city, called Manchester, England. Number 62 Singleton Road, Salford, became a second home for myself, my brother and sister. We eagerly looked forward to Tuesday nights, where a group of kids would get together for some learning, socializing with friends, and eat a yummy supper. And there would always be a huge smiling hello from Rabbi Chaim Farron. As we got older and graduated from the Babbage day camps, the Camp Gan Israel, the Camp Gan Israel sleepaway camps, well, that was when the true fun began. Each summer was a new adventure, from Bournemouth to the Lake District to Tunbridge Wells, all exquisite places in the English countryside that we may never have explored or experienced if not for these unique summers at camp. The friendships we made, the community we built, the ruach all around us, the songs we sang with such fervor, and the stories we learned that we continue to share with others all these years later. The peanut butter and jam sandwiches we made each day before we left for our daily field trips too. Amazingly, I still love peanut butter. We cannot forget the mischief we got up to either. Over 200 giggling girls each summer, always trying to prank one another. Skip ahead to 1979, when we moved as a family from England to San Francisco. You can imagine the first item on our agenda was to find the closest Chabad. We fast became close friends with Rabbi Langer, Rabbi Dolphin, and Rabbi Rice. It was a new Chabad community which speedily grew, and we felt right at home. My brother had his bar mitzvah, my sister got married, all with Chabad in San Francisco. Moving ahead to October of 1991, Rabbi Dolphin officiated my husband Andy and my wedding in New York. It was beautiful. Rabbi Dolphin then arranged a special visit for us, along with my parents, to meet the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Neither of us knew what to expect. It was a Sunday morning, October the 20th, 1991. As we drove up to 770 Eastern Parkway, we were amazed at the sight before us. Lines and lines of people were wrapped around the block, waiting to enter the building for an audience with the Rebbe. Here we were, not having to wait in any of the lines, but instead escorted without delay into the building. My memory of meeting the Rebbe will always and forever be etched into my memory. It was surreal. To be in the presence of such an auspicious human being. The Rebbe had an aura encircling him. You could almost touch and feel the holiness all around. I remember when the Rebbe handed me $1. His hands were so white, like the finest of any porcelain you could find. It is hard to put the feelings I have into words, but I know at that very moment I would never again in my lifetime meet such a humble or greater tzaddik than the Rebbe. My husband was right behind me, and as I moved along from the Rebbe, he handed Andy $1 too. Then Andy started to move forward, only to feel a tap on his shoulder. He turned around and was startled to hear the Rebbe say to him, "You are the chassan. Here is another $1 for you." My husband had no words. We both know how fortunate we were to have been in the presence of this auspicious and great holy tzaddik of our time. I believe my meeting with the Rebbe paved the way for the years that followed. We moved to Florida and were blessed with 4 children. My sister and I opened a Chabad preschool in Coral Springs under Rabbi Rebbetzin Denberg. Our children attended the Chabad Hebrew Academy School. 19 years ago, February, a very cold winter, we moved to Minnesota, and I stayed in the Jewish early childhood education field for all these years. I have finally come full circle, all because of the vision of Rabbi Shalom and Moshe Book had. They invited me to partner with them to bring their vision to fruition by creating and opening Jewish Beginnings Early Childhood Preschool here in the heart of Minneapolis. It is a dream come true. We are a Reggio-inspired preschool with a warm, safe, and comfortable learning environment for our students. Our program encourages the natural curiosity of our children. In Jewish tradition, we are encouraged to ask questions, continue to learn, and always strive to be our best selves. Reggio Emilia is an approach to learning that beautifully complements these values. Please, all of you, stop by and visit our preschool. We would love to show you around. One final note. Just before my official first day of work with the books, they presented me with the most special gift I have ever received. This photograph is of the meeting we had with the Rebbe. It hangs proudly in our living room and brings back special memories daily. I am forever grateful to the books and to the Chabad Lubavitch community at large across this beautiful world. Thank you for allowing me to share my story. We pray to guide and protect the IDF as they defend Israel and bring our hostages home safely. Am Yisrael Chai. And may we see the coming of Mashiach soon. Thank you.
Rebbe once wrote a letter to the second president of Israel. And the Rebbe tells them in Hebrew, from the day I started going to Cheder, and even before then, as a 1-year-old, as a 2-year-old, the Rebbe says, in my mind, I started imagining what will the world be like when the final redemption happens. What will the world be like when there will be peace and tranquility? When the third temple will be rebuilt? When people not hate each other, but love each other? From the earliest memories that the Rebbe had, he was dreaming about a life, a world of redemption. And that really was the Rebbe's life mission, to bring Mashiach, to bring redemption to this world. He shared with us and he said, our generation, our task is to make this world a better place. And in fact, in 1991, CNN came to 770 and asked the Rebbe, what is your message to the world about the Mashiach? Let's see what the Rebbe said.
Can you tell us the message you have for the world of Mashiach, the message you have of Mashiach?
Because previous knowledge that about it comes the ship is ready to come now, it is only from our part to do something additional in the realm of goodness and kindness.
People should be doing goodness and kindness for him to come.
At least a little more than the ship will come in it. That's what it encourages. That's what the question I have.
You're very kind.
Rebbe made it very clear. An additional act of goodness and kindness. So friends, let's start with a simple act of goodness and kindness. In the center of your table, there's a small tzedakah box with a little bowl with some coins. Take a coin and put it into the pushka, into the tzedakah box, creating energies of giving, of kindness, additional acts of goodness and kindness. But in addition to that, also in the center of every table, you'll notice there is a pile of cards, there's a pile of pens, and there's an envelope on every table. Take a card, take a pen. This is a card addressed, Dear Rebbe, to hasten the coming of Mashiach, my additional act of goodness and kindness is, and still take on an additional mitzvah, an additional act of goodness and kindness that you can do. All of these notes, when you're finished filling them out, place them into the envelope. The envelope will not be open. Nobody's going to read it. It's private. And next week, when I travel to New York to be at the Rebbe's holy resting place on the Rebbe's yard site, I'm going to take with me all of these notes. You can as well include a request for blessings for you and your family and sign your name on the bottom. And together, let's act with additional acts of goodness and kindness, another mitzvah, to tip the scale, tip the balance, finally bring Mashiach. And on the topic of goodness and kindness and tzedakah, I want to thank all of you who have so generously contributed towards our event tonight, all of the sponsors. Thank you so much for making this evening possible. Thank you for your tzedakah, for your additional act of goodness and kindness, and may God repay you many, many times over with all the best of blessings. Amen. While you fill in your card, we'll enjoy this video.
Singing with the sea, all right? I'm just going to read it. Have your smile, have no fear. Mashiach will be here this year. We want Mashiach now. We don't want to wait.
We all know that recent times, especially since October 7th, anti-Semitism has reared its ugly head and raised its evil voice very loud and clear. And everybody does what they can to counter that hate. But there are those that are on the front lines. There are those, you can say, that are in the lion's den. And that is the Chabad rabbis and Rebbetzins and their families that live on college campuses serving the Jewish students. Here in Minnesota, we're fortunate to have Rabbi Yitzi and Chavi Steiner at the University of Minnesota. They had a family simcha, but they are on Zoom. So let's give them a louder round of applause. And throughout the country, throughout the world, brave, selfless warriors fighting against evil and hate, but fighting with torches of light and love. And tonight, we are fortunate to have with us a soldier on the front lines. Rabbi Dov Greenberg, together with his wife Rachel and their 6 children, served the Jewish students at Stanford University. And if you follow the news, you know that Stanford University is not necessarily always the most loving place for Jews. Yeah. Anti-Semitism is live and well there. Rabbi Greenberg is empowering the students with confidence, with love, with hope, with the Rebbe's teachings of how to not cower in the face of hate. But beyond Stanford University, Rabbi Greenberg is also a world-renowned, highly acclaimed lecturer and speaker. And on a personal note, you know, one of the highlights of the year for us Chabad rabbis is once a year in November, there's the annual conference, the Kinnis HaShluchim, the conference where all Chabad rabbis throughout the world spend a weekend together. And at the end of this conference, there's this gala banquet, 6,500 people from every place in the world coming together. And every year, there's a rabbi that gives the keynote address. And growing up, my parents are Chabad emissaries, my siblings are, and I always waited for the day that I could finally join as an emissary, as a shliach myself. 10 years ago, 2014, just 2 weeks before the conference, Rachi and I formally became the Rebbe Shluchim here in Minneapolis. And in 2014, at that conference, that was the first conference that I participated as a shliach. And to my good fortune, that year, the keynote address was presented by Rabbi Dov Greenberg. And I remember, imagine 6,500 people sitting in a room. Rabbi Greenberg spoke, and you could hear a pin drop. The place was mesmerized. I still remember his speech about the power of the neshama kol dodi dofek, even in the middle of his speech, he managed to do this. Was silent. It was incredible. Sitting for 20 minutes, transfixed to a master teacher, sharing the Rebbe's message of the power of one individual. So friends, I want to share with you a little clip from that night, the introduction to Rabbi Greenberg's speech at the conference in 2014.
Rabbi Dov Greenberg is the executive director of the Lord Chabad House, a vibrant Jewish student center serving Stanford University in Palo Alto, California. At his heart of American technology and innovation, Rabbi Greenberg has built a thriving hub for rigorous Jewish study and a welcoming environment for young Jews to explore and experience their heritage. He has earned the admiration of faculty and students at Stanford, who are inspired by his wisdom, warm approach, and by his ability to effectively communicate Jewish thought and spirituality in a way that touches the soul. Rabbi Greenberg lectures extensively around the globe, where he has developed a reputation for the refreshing Jewish perspective he brings to contemporary issues, serving on the board of directors of Chabad on Campus International Foundation. Rabbi Greenberg is admired by his peers, fellow shluchim on campus, and community Chabad houses far and near. Tonight, Rabbi Greenberg will address the theme of this year's Guinness on behalf of his fellow shluchim around the world. Let's welcome our fellow shliach, Rabbi Dov Greenberg.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a very warm welcome to address the topic of our event tonight, the Rebbe's Life, empowering hope in the face of anti-Semitism. Please rise and give a warm welcome to the Rebbe Shliach and Director of Chabad at Stanford, Rabbi Dov Greenberg.
San Francisco, the kosher falafel stand, Yossi's Falafel. So one day the government tax inspector comes to Yossi's Falafel stand. We have a question. He says, sure. He says, we see you have a tax write-off for hummus and for pita. That makes sense. Okay. See, you have a tax write-off for electricity, rent. That's also kosher. However, our question is, have 10 round-trip tickets to Miami Beach as a tax write-off from your falafel stand. That it's a bit interesting. On top of that, we have 15 round-trip tickets to Israel, to Tel Aviv. How was that a tax write-off from the falafel stand? So Yossi looks at the government employee with a big smile. He says, you don't understand, we deliver. I say that because Rabbi Shmuel Chabad here in the city of Minnesota really delivers. It's special to be in a place where Judaism is delivered in such a warm and uplifting and thoughtful and inspiring way. So really, on behalf of the community, of all the rabbis and rebbitzins, Chabad, Minnesota, we want to give you a tremendous shachar. We continue all to be able to deliver to the Jewish community in ever-growing measures. Amen. Some time ago, it's in Switzerland. It's Thursday, and a flight from Switzerland to Finland for Shabbat on Friday. Flight was 8 a.m. I woke up with plenty of time to make it to the airport. It was an unexpected snowstorm. I wasn't in the papers or on the radio the night before. So I woke up with a few hours to make it, but going on the mountains, Switzerland, snow, ice, long delays. Why at the airport 8 o'clock? The airport wasn't on the elevations, so the airport was open, but the flight missed the flight. The flight was in. So I went to the counter and I said, Shabbat, it's Friday and there's sunset and Shabbat, and for another flight, they said, look, there's a flight 9 o'clock. It's going to stop in Germany for an hour. It's going to land in a few hours before sunset, and then when it's all going to work out. I said, okay, thank them. I said, by the way, they ordered a kosher meal for the original flights. Can I get one on this? Said we need 24 hours to guarantee it, but we're going to put it into the computer. Okay, thank you. We're on the flight. Everybody's eating. I'm starving. I woke up for 12 hours before. I said, can I have my kosher meal? They said, did you order one? I said, yes. I didn't ask when. What's your name? They look. Okay. See Mr. Greenberg? No, it's not. We don't have a kosher meal. I said, there's one kosher meal. I said, there's one for Mr. Lane. I said, is he on the flight? Is he eating? It's a problem. That's strange. To throw out the one kosher meal, let it go to waste. I'll be happy to take it. I said, there was an unexpected snowstorm in the Alps. Maybe Mr. Lane is stuck. He's not on the plane. Why didn't you? So they weren't sure if he was there. So they made an announcement, kosher meal, Mr. Lane. He wasn't on the flight. So they said, okay, have it. They bring the kosher. They were very friendly. I said, by the way, because they had the papers with them, I said, where was Mr. Lane headed? Where was he? He was stopping in Germany. He was going to Finland. So I figured God's on my side today. I'm going to have lunch on Mr. Lane also. I have information. So we land, we switch planes, we're flying again. For lunchtime, everybody's eating lunch. I say, excuse me, can I have my kosher meal? He said, did you order one? I said, yes. He said, what's your name? I want to help them out, expedite, I said, Mr. Lane. So they look at the paper, they say we have one kosher meal for Mr. Greenberg. Unexpected snowstorm in the house. Stop. How do you make an announcement? See if he's on the plane. If he's not on the plane. Our identity. Who are we? As we journey through life, as we question who are we, but more generally tonight, the Jewish people, through history. You can say, as Jews, we've hit some serious turbulence the last months around the world, in Europe, in America, and I think most in this room would say unexpectedly, the turbulence the Jewish community is experiencing in terms of anti-Semitism and its expression in various quarters and places where we expected at least, it's pretty rough. What I want to try to do tonight is divide this talk into two pieces. The first part, I want to try to step back and look at anti-Semitism historically and to analyze why it is that it has been so successful even in America and why it has caught a lot of our fellow Americans off guard and even the Jewish community off guard. So it's very challenging to deal with. In many ways, it's spreading. And you ask those Jews what's going on, it's complicated. So to look at that, and then for the second part, to look at a positive response from Jewish history as well. Now, I need to say at the outset that these are both longer topics. We're not going to solve all the problems. We're not going to solve anti-Semitism, but the perspective will be helpful, and also the general response, the general perspective that will come from some of the teachings of our tradition, illuminated by some of the Rebbe's inspiring insight, will be helpful. Okay. So we're going to begin this way. A good definition for anti-Semitism. good way to view it, to understand it, is to use a term that some historians and thinkers have used, and I think they were right. Several have written about it, but I'm going to quote a professor from Harvard. She's a brilliant lady. Her name is Ruth Weiss, from Canada originally. And she uses a term that's very insightful, and we'll speak about this for a few minutes. Anti-Semitism is a virus. Think of anti-Semitism as a virus. Why a virus? Is there a doctor in the house? How many doctors are there? Raise your hand if there are not so many doctors, okay? Okay, human beings contract viruses, right? Everybody here, there's viruses out there and the human being gets a virus. Except the human being has something called the immune system. The immune system fights viruses. It's one of the most marvelous systems the human being has, the immune system. There are viruses that attack the human body every day. Bacteria and immune system attacks what attacks it and destroys it. By the way, for the non-doctors, everybody has an iPhone or a smartphone, computer that everybody has. Same concept. There's a virus. There are viruses out there that seek to infiltrate our phone or our computer. Virus. Computer has antivirus software. Because the virus can destroy the computer. So what does the virus do? If it wants to harm a human being or the computer, same technique. If you have a vaccine where the body built up an immune to it, or the computer software knows about the virus, it blocks it. So the virus mutates. The virus mutates and pretends it's not a virus. You can get a friendly email. You click this for you save 25% in some store, right? You click the link, it doesn't look like it's a virus. It looks like it's some interesting thing. If you click it, because the virus mutated, your computer's unaware of it, you can destroy the computer. Same with the body. The virus mutates. So it changes its appearance once it's discovered, and it looks friendly, and then it's invited in. So the key reason what we're living through now, and why it has swept through the Western world so successfully, and why we're having such a difficult fighting against it, because for the last 2,000 years, anti-Semitism mutated twice. Both times it caught the Jewish world off guard, and we are living through a third mutation, where anti-Semitism looks completely different. It took on a new external approach, trappings. It looks completely different. It has completely caught the Western world and most of the Jewish world off guard. In some ways, it's been invited in. And that's the difficulty that we face. And when we view it this way, a lot becomes comprehensive. What do I mean to say? Let's look at two mutations and then the third. 2,000 years ago, Rome. Rome had a problem with Israel, with the Jewish people. Rome was a long war with people in Israel, Jewish people. But Rome got into many wars with many people. They destroyed and fought with many people. The whole ancient world. Rome was fighting with everybody. The Jews also. They didn't hate the Jews necessarily in a deeper kind of way than the other nations that they attacked and destroyed. You know, when the mafia kills somebody, they say it's not replaceable, it was business, right? So that was Rome. Came to Jerusalem, the Jews were fighting, it wasn't so personal. But the first major mutation of anti-Semitism where it really changed, and we're familiar with it from our own family history, almost everybody in this room, is when Christianity rose in the early centuries and grew, and then you had from large segments of the Christian world anti-Semitism against Jewish tradition, against Torah, against Islam, against Judaism. And that was very personal. It was Christian anti-Semitism that lasted for hundreds and hundreds of years, millennia, and swept across Europe. And there's very few families in this room that go back, a generation, 2 or 3 or didn't experience expulsion, persecutions, pogroms that emanated from Christian anti-Semitism. Of course, it wasn't from all Christians, but it was from large segments of Christianity. It was personal. They hated the Jews for specific Christian reasons. The Jews rejected their faith, their Messiah, their God, their interpretation. And then they accused Jews of all horrible things, blood libels, killing Christian children and using their blood for matzah, poisoning wells, all these libels that have entered into Jewish life that we're familiar with. Open up a prayer book, we'll see prayers asking God to protect us from some of these. The Haggadah has expressions of that. There are a whole host of English words that come into the English vocabulary because of Christian anti-Semitism. Ghetto, run, often to say, these are all words that we have in English today that emanate from that anti-Semitism. Okay, so that was mutation 1. It was personal, it came from Christianity, and it was against the Jewish person. By the way, because we understand what that anti-Semitism was, what motivated it. If a Jew did not want to have hatred, discrimination, persecution, and expulsion, what did the Jew need to do? Convert. If a Jew converted to Christianity, his problems were solved. Because it was a religious hatred against the Jewish person for their religion. And that's what the Jews were used to. Now we're going to jump all the way to the late 1800s, 60, 70 years before the Holocaust. Now we have mutation 2. Completely different. Anti-Semitism, and this is what caught so many Jewish people off guard in Europe before the Holocaust. Not many Jews didn't believe that it was going to happen. Because Jews were then living after Enlightenment. And Christianity was not the dominant faith in Germany and most of Europe. Western Europe at the time was becoming much more secular. There were people that hated Jews, they were anti-Semites. So now anti-Semitism mutates. It changes. It still wants to destroy Jews, it hates Jews. But now watch the mutation. Hitler's Germany, and the decades before the Holocaust, how did they attack the Jewish people? Anti-Semitism switched from hatred against our religion, coming from a religious basis. It went from a religious basis against Judaism. Now it starts coming from a secular basis, not against Judaism, but against the Jewish race, turned into racism. The anti-Semitism of Hitler and his people were the Jewish race, the genetics of the Jew is bad. Nothing to do with their faith. Doesn't matter if they're religious or not. They are destroying the Aryan race, they're destroying Germany. Everybody's familiar with the propaganda, right? The Jewish people are a race that's destroying our race and stab Germany in the back. Their race is inferior, they're going to destroy the family, destroy them. But now, anti-Semitism mutated on the Jewish community of thought. Jews were used to a certain Christian perspective, and had certain beliefs, and were indoctrinated in a certain. Then they hate us because we're believe in Judaism. But we're secular Jews, and these are secular neighbors, anti-Semitism is over, it can't be. Secular people, they don't believe in all that old stuff, and we're not even religious. Oh, can't be. Hitler's some madman. No one's listening to him. The Jews were used to the old virus of anti-Semitism. They didn't realize that completely mutated. It's coming from a different argument. Hitler based it on more specific. He based it on pseudoscience and pseudo-nationalism. He said the Jews had destroyed both. And that took hold in Germany and across Europe. Jews weren't prepared. So today we wonder, why didn't the Jews, for almost 1800 years, Jews were used to a different kind of anti-Semitism, different arguments. All new and caught them all apart. Now, we're living through a third mutation, and once again, it's a new language, it's coming from a new place. And a lot of the phrases that the Jews are using are the same for last mutation. The new anti-Semitism has three new principles. They don't use the old arguments. They don't use the old language. By and large, anti-Semitism now is not coming from the Christian world. The Christian world, parts of it are very friendly to the Jewish people and is great supporters of Israel. It's not coming from some pseudo-science, pseudo-nationalism, saying that the Jewish race needs to be destroyed. All that language is gone. What's the new anti-Semitism? The new anti-Semitism has mutated and it has three principles. Principle number one is every nation could have a state, and their state is kosher. There's one people on the planet who are not allowed to have a state, and their state is evil, the Jewish people. So the Christians have, there's over 103 predominantly Christian states in the world today. 103. There's over 56 Muslim states in the world. No one has a problem with any of those states. After the Holocaust, even no one ever said Germany shouldn't be a state anymore. No one, you never heard such terms. The new anti-Semitism has three propositions at a time. Proposition number one is every nation can have a state except who? The Jewish people. 100 Christian states, 50, almost 60 Muslim states, that's fine. The one Jewish state, smaller than New Jersey, the one democracy in the Middle East, that state is illegitimate, it shouldn't exist. That's proposition one. It's a new argument. Proposition two is every Jew and every Jewish institution is a supporter of the Jewish state, is a Zionist. And because the Jewish state is not allowed to exist because it's evil, and because every Jew is a supporter and every Jewish institution is a supporter of that state, doesn't matter if you're a woman, a child, it doesn't matter if you're in a campus here or in Stanford or in France in a restaurant, not relevant. If you're Jewish, you're a Zionist. If you're a Zionist, Zionism is guilty of every evil. And therefore, every Jew and every Jewish institution is a legitimate target. Those are the three propositions you want to say. It's a whole new language. Language is when people can have a state, every Jew and every Jewish institution is a supporter, and every people is now we understand. By the way, all the old myths and libels against the Jews for 2,000 years have all been reincorporated into new anti-Semitism. The goal is the same: destroy the Jew, kill the Jew. Same goal. We hate you. What changed is the mutation, a whole new language, which ruled most of the world. Especially against that. No, they're not saying we have to convert. They're not saying you got to have new language. It's a mutation. Figure out how to get past the whole system. And academics didn't recycle. They used the same language. It used to be the Christian children. Now it's we're bombing hospitals on purpose and we're killing children. I can go on and on. We don't have time. But every myth that was around for 2,000 years is reincorporated in the new anti-Israel, anti-Zion, all new language. And you all know that a lot of the Jewish world is caught up with all these kind of arguments. Well, they're criticizing Israel, they don't mean it, is it legit? Well, as if somebody is criticizing Israel, fine. So this is mutation number 3. That's called Western world off guard. Now one more piece to this. There was a doctor, a Jewish doctor, in the Polish institution. Alex, I got the results from your blood test. I have bad news and worse news. Which do you want first? So he says, okay, give me the bad news first. Because I'm looking at the results, you only have 24 hours to live based on the result. Alex says, it's not going to be worse than that. That's the bad news. What can be worse? The doctor said, I've been trying to reach you since yesterday. So that was the bad news. Now we're gonna go one more step, but then we'll go to the good news. One more step. One more piece that happened here. And again, we'll realize so much of the success of anti-Semitism because of this exact step. It also will clarify a lot of the interesting facts. We can understand how anti-Semites, people who hate the Jews, could convince a group of evil people, of real bad people, to hate Jews. That we can understand. But the question that bothers so many good people in the world and the Jewish community is, why is anti-Semitism been so successful? That was sweeping through the Western world, America, the media, college campuses. People are supposed to be liberal and loving. They should naturally side with the Jewish community, and they're not. What's going on? How does that happen? The answer to that is the anti-Semites of today have used the same devilish brilliant strategy that has been used the last 2 mutations. If you want to get masses of people to hate the Jews, not just evil people, but even masses of otherwise decent people, what you need to do is you need to convince your society, teach community, you need to spread every means that you have, that what you value most, your highest values, what you think is the greatest, most virtuous, the holiest, the most precious in your life, guess who wants to destroy it? Guess who's against that? Jewish people. Convince a lot of people that what you value most, most precious in your life, the Jewish people want to destroy, you're going to get a lot of people that dislike the Jews or even hate them, or even say it's okay to destroy them, because look what they're against. So, if you have some Christians who are anti-Semitic, like I said before, it's not all, but you have a group of that kind of Christian, and you have millions of people who believe in the doctrines of Christianity. What's most valuable for them? Their faith, their belief system. So if you say what you value most, your belief, your God, your Messiah, there's one group that's against it, that destroys it, that mocks it. And know who those people are, the Jewish people. You're going to get whole cities and villages and societies to say, if the Jews mock and destroy and reject what we know is to be most holy, most elevated, then we have to have a Tuesday night pogrom, or we have to expel them because they're evil. Maybe they're the sons of the devil, children of the devil, etc., etc. They're evil. That's what the Christians. Germany. What did Nazi propaganda machine do for about 2 decades, especially a decade before the Holocaust? They told in Germany, they told the German people, what do you value most? In Germany, the 1930s, 20s, 30s, what did German people value most? Not Christianity. So Hitler and his people didn't go around saying, oh, the Jews killed the Christian savior. They didn't say that. They're stabbing everything you hold. Those were the things that were most valuable in Germany. And after enough time of repeating that the Jews are destroying Germany, German nationalism and the German race, a lot of otherwise decent people said, this is what they're doing. We have to deal with them very harshly. One of the most demonic inversions in history of antisemity. What did the modern haters of Jews do today, and the haters of Israel? Why do they destroy Jews? How do we do this? Start hating Israel and hating everybody who supports Israel and hating every synagogue. How do we do that? Very simple. For decades, the Jewish community and others, but very strongly in the Jewish community, has been teaching the world never again. Now, what's the worst thing? What's the greatest evil? Greatest evil is genocide, racism, apartheid, ethnic cleansing. What Hitler did is the worst thing possible, crime against humanity, and that's the worst thing possible. The greatest ideal is love, civility, and the worst thing is a Holocaust, a genocide. So what the modern anti-Semites did is, all we need to do right now is accuse Israel of what the secular world values most. What do they value most? They value most human rights. What is the greatest evil? Apartheid, genocide, ethnic cleansing. So all we need to do now is accuse Israel of those crimes, not small crimes. Don't have little petty arguments. Say Israel is guilty of the greatest crimes that officially liberal people have to hate most. Genocide, ethnic cleansing. Accuse Israel of the worst crimes. Often if you watch that, how come they're so extreme? Why don't they have a measured argument? It's not about measured argument. It's about getting people to hate Israel and saying that Israel should be destroyed, that you could take children, kidnap them, and if you, in America, you put a poster, and even New York City, it gets torn down. How do you get an otherwise decent person to tear down posters that were torn down across America on every college campus? How did that happen? Because this is part of the group that is being taught are guilty of the worst crimes against humanity. If a nation state is guilty of the greatest crimes against humanity, so then that's what they deserve. So there you have the perfect storm of the third mutation. The Jewish world didn't expect it. It doesn't really know how to see it properly or argue with it. The non-Jewish world certainly not. Then you have the inversion of that you accuse the Jewish people of what the society holds most dear that Israel destroys. Now you have the perfect storm of our experience in Europe, in America, and even in otherwise decent, beautiful. Okay. Now, there's a lot more to be said about all this and how to respond. There are different ways to respond. There's responses to the vast majority of America that supports Israel, likes the Jewish people. There's a response to anti-Semites. There's a response to the Jewish community. But it's for a different discussion. I want to now, for the remaining time, move to a general key concept about where do we go from here? What does Judaism say about anti-Semitism, about what we're experiencing? What's the general Jewish approach? And over here, I want to share a little passage from Mark Twain and a Medrash. How the Rebbe understood the Medrash because I think it's so relevant and actually is uplifting, inspiring, and historically accurate. It's not just, optimistic, but it's actually an empowering viewpoint, an assumed viewpoint of how to view Jewish history and therefore how we should respond to that. So Mark Twain wrote an article about the Jewish people at the end of the 1800s. And he analyzed Jewish history in this article. The article is called Concerning the Jews. And at the end of the article, he wonders how the Jews survive when all the other empires don't. He talks about Rome. I'll quote some of it. He says, Egyptians and the Babylonians rose, filled the planet with sound and splendor, and faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greek and the Roman followed, made a vast noise, and they're gone. Other nations came and rose, held their torch up high, and it faded. The Jew says they're watching, they're here all along, they're watching all these empires come and go. Because, but they're exhibiting no weakening of their energies. They're still vibrant, they're alive. All forces and all empires seem to be mortal, except the Jew. The Jew doesn't seem to be part of this mortal nation process. Outlive. And the last word of the article is What is the secret to Jewish immortality? With a question mark. That's how he ends the article. So how does Judaism answer that question? What is the secret to our immortality? Because if we focus on that a bit, from there is a source of optimism of what we need to strengthen. Good cause for joy to celebrate and be optimistic, even though we're facing kind of. Over here, I'll share briefly an interesting insight from the Torah and the Medrash, and the comments by the Rebbe of how we apply it to modern anti-Semitism. Interestingly, it is when the first Jewish person really decided to accept Judaism as a first bar mitzvah in Jewish history. First bar mitzvah in Jewish history would have the first Jewish person as a teenager, the younger generation, accepting Judaism. When was that? This is Abraham and Sarah had a child, Isaac, Yitzchak. Then the Torah says that on his day of his bar mitzvah, there was a day when Isaac became 13. And on that day, they made a big party. The text says Abraham and Sarah made a big party, and the Medrash and Rashi, where you should Rabba, Yalkut, Shumeni, the commentaries say, what was this big party they made? It was his bar mitzvah. Isaac became 13. First bar mitzvah, so it's the first Jew accepting Jewish tradition. Interesting. And also, the reason why this Medrash is relevant is because in many ways it's the first Jew accepting the tradition at a young age, and also the first kind of anti-Semitic attack, both in the same moment. So it gives us insight into the core issues there. So it says in the text, a big party was thrown. Big bar mitzvah. It's 4,000 years ago. First Jew, first bar mitzvah. The commentators say, what does it mean was a big party? Obviously, it was a big spread. We don't know what the caterer had enough food or not. We don't know. It was a big party. And it says, God, because all the big dignitaries, all the kings and the celebrities of the ancient world came, and the paparazzi, everybody was there. But it says that all the ancient kings came to this bar mitzvah. Abraham and Sarah were very famous. Today, half of humanity claims spiritual or biological lineage from Abraham and Sarah. Abraham and Sarah were celebrities back in the day too. So all the kings came. This is the greatest king of the ancient world also came. His name was Og. Here's in the Torah and in the commentators and the Talmud, he was the most fearsome king of the ancient world in Abraham's time. So it says he was by that event. Now, interestingly, is we don't know what Isaac said. There's no recording what was served or what was said. We don't know what Abraham said. We don't know what Sarah said. We don't know what Isaac. There's only one recording of that event, and that is on the table of Og. There was a table of non-Jewish kings, and Og was at that table. And the Medrash records for us that conversation. This is a conversation that becomes really well. Echoes across time till today. The conversation went like this. Many of the smaller kings turned to Og, and they said, Og, you were wrong. You were dead wrong. They began to make fun of him. He said, for many years, we came to smaller kings, came to we asked you, what are you saying about this new religion? There's this new religion called monotheism. Abraham and Sarah, there's these Jews, Hebrews, and they started to teach this idea about an invisible God who created the world, created human beings in his image, and we have freedom, and there's morality and goodness and mitzvah, a whole new paradigm, a whole new way of viewing reality and history and life. Interesting. It was otherwise a pagan world. Something you had the first two Jews. Abraham and Sarah had a startup, okay? It was a startup. So he said, what do you say about this startup? Should we invest? Should we not invest? What do you think the future is? That's what it was. So I said, no, this startup, don't invest. It's not there. Abraham and Sarah are incredible to have, they're special people, no question, influential. Og said the first Jews are going to be the last Jews. Their children are not going to follow their way. This is an abstract, spiritual idea that they're never going to be able to pass on to the next generation. It's not going to. And he said that Abraham and Sarah are not gonna have any children, they're not gonna have any situation, it's all gonna die with them. Pretty beautiful relationships. They told, oh, now, you said Abraham and Sarah are never gonna have children and they can't pass it on to future generations. They did have a child, Isaac. Now we're all sitting by his bar mitzvah. They were roots, part of his moving places, has by the next generation. Child. The Pope said, no. I was right. Even though there's a biological child, it's still as if they don't have any child. It's nothing. And you think this child has significance? He says, the etzbakana with a small finger, my small finger, puckers, I can crush him and just destroy him. With my small finger, he doesn't count for anything. I was right. There's not going to be any continuation. The Medrash concludes by saying at that moment, at that moment, God's voice was heard in heaven. God said, you say that Isaac is insignificant and you could destroy him with your pinky, with your small finger. I swear, God says. Medrash records. That's in time to come. Isaac's going to have children and grandchildren. And when your adult, are going to rise to try to destroy Isaac and his children, not only will you not succeed, but you're going to fall. You're going to self-implode in that endeavor. So that's the Medrash. That's what we have recorded. We have this dialogue about a table, Og threatening to crush the bar mitzvah boy with his finger. She didn't bring a present. This is he's threatening to kill the bar mitzvah boy. It's a different level. And God says, no. So because of time, just briefly, two questions that the Rebbe asks on this Medrash. One question is, the Rebbe says the Medrash, the Rebbe writes this Medrash, one of his notes, his diary, he wrote this Medrash. And he says the whole conversation is strange because it's 13 years later. 13 years later, if this conversation would happen around the circumcision of Isaac, would make sense. Hope went around saying you can't have a child. Now the child is born, so the conversation would make sense. He said Abraham and Sarah can't have a child, now there is a child. But the conversation is happening 13 years later by the bar mitzvah. Why is the conversation happening by the bar mitzvah? And number two is it's also strange that what Isaac and what Abraham and Sarah said, that's not recorded. The only thing our tradition Torah records is an argument that an anti-Semite has about killing the bar mitzvah boy or trying to 30. So what the Rebbe says is this dialogue, this debates, and philosophy of people are against Jews, arguments about the anti-Semites that come threaten the Jewish people, and it's the Jewish response. So it's not a question about a biological child. It's about a conflict between two worldviews. Old view and the Abraham and Sarah. Jewish view versus the view that is opposed to everything Judaism stands. Abraham and Sarah represents what's at the heart of life and history, goodness, God. What matters is blessings we give to other, not only amassing for ourselves, to build beautiful homes and societies, morality and ethics and holiness. That's at the heart of the human experience and history. That's where real power comes when we build societies and nations and families built on holiness and goodness. That's what really turns history. Godly view, it's a Torah view. Og is the opposite of philosophy. Og says what matters is physical brute strength, power and wealth. Just the physical world, that's all there is. There's no spiritual, there's no morality, there's no Torah, there's no God. There's only physical evolution. A human being is self-conscious fungus. That's all a human being is. And it's about power and wealth and amassing whatever you could for yourself, crushing anybody who gets in the way. Og perspective. So Og said, Abraham and Sarah, you have two spiritual people, they have their own life, but they're not going to be able to pass it on to the next generation. Younger Jews are not going to buy into this. The real world is not going to last. When Isaac was born, it wasn't a question about Abraham and Sarah had a biological question, but a child doesn't mean much. They waited till 13. Father was mature, intelligent. He was 13, accepted upon himself publicly the perspective, the worldview of Abraham and Sarah, embracing the Jewish way of life. So now they turn away and they say, you said Judaism and these new ideas don't have a future, they do have a future. We're wrong. But he said, I wasn't wrong. With my finger I can crush him, meaning to say that when you have the Judaism in the tent of Abraham and Sarah in the Jewish states of Jerusalem, Pearl Park, and Heights, the Judaism is shtetl. The tent of Abraham and Sarah, they survive. But when the Jew goes into my world, as Boyd says, and he begins to feel the pressure of my finger, when he's in a college camp, he's outside of Jewish environments, the hostile world, and the pressure, physical world, hatred will destroy the Jewish animals, the pressure, assimilation, that pressure on the Jewish family, the finger will be crushed. Here in the context, very low. 4,000 years later from that experience, read the newspapers tonight, or watch the news, you'll hear almost identical language. There is a state, Iran, on the verge of nuclear power, and they've said many times that if they get nuclear power, what are they going to use it for? They're going to wipe Israel off the map. One finger will push the button, small finger, and they'll wipe the Jews off the map. That's what Iran says. We'll rain missiles down from all over, wipe you off the map. That's the language they use. The Explicana with our missiles, with our buttons will push, knock the Jews out. And then you read other papers that talks about Jewish assimilation. Jews are assimilating and disappearing. A treacher of a lady's finger is going to wipe out the Jews. So you go back 4,000 years, and Oig at the first bar mitzvah has a realistic perspective, and he says Judaism in the real world, when it's surrounded by anti-Semites, when it's surrounded by the pressure of the world, I'm going to wipe the Jew off the map. Isaac doesn't even count because he now has Israel surrounded. But Isaac has the pressure of big empires around him, he's going to disappear. But he will wipe him out. Assimilation will wipe out the Jew. What does God say? God said 4,000 years ago that you don't understand what really moves history. The deepest strength, the deepest power comes from embracing Torah and Jewish tradition. You say, I'm a child of Abraham and Sarah, and embrace the viewpoint, the perspective, the moral grandeur, the holiness of it, and the work to incorporate that in my relationship, in my home, in my society. Not only does God say, first premise, is that going to survive, but all the hope in history, beginning with the first oath, who are going to rise up to destroy the Jew, are going to say, we're going to crush you. Every single one of them got sweared by the first mitzvah will fall in that endeavor. The children of Isaac and Abraham and Sarah will march on. So Mark Twain says, the Egyptian, the Babylonian, the Persian, the Roman, all the oaths of history from Hitler, they all said we're going to wipe the Jew out. But it's got to be realistic. We're going to be realistic. Anti-Semitism is horrible. What's going to be with the Jewish people? If there's one lesson from all of Jewish history is Jews should be optimistic. And every single enemy that ever rose to wipe the Jew out is red, and that all disappeared. Every single one of them. And the Jewish people continue to ride through history, to grow, to prosper. It doesn't mean we don't have challenges, but it means that we need to be optimistic. Because what we hear, if you listen closely tonight in this room, is that same voice that was heard at the first promise. God said, I promise that the children of Abraham and Sarah will continue to survive. That promise echoes in this room, and that's what we have here in this room. Promises. Not just a promise, now it's expressed in all the lives in this room and rooms around the whole world. So that has to be a Jewish approach. A Jew has to say, yes, there are difficulties. We have to teach it. We have to understand what anti-Semitism is, how it's successful, and we have to have real strategy of how to combat it. So we have to be confident, etc., etc. But at the same time, the Jew has to have pride and confidence and joy. And it's through walking with Jewish pride and embracing our tradition. That's actually what makes the Jewish people strong, and at the end of the day, wins history. And I'll conclude with this image that captures it really well. Again, it's a real image from Jewish history. But if you look at the three Jewish holidays that revolve around anti-Semitism, the BDS movements, the divest, the boycott, and sanction the Jewish people and destroy them, they are Hanukkah, Pesach, and Purim. Hanukkah, start with Pesach, ancient Egypt, 3,500 years ago. Pharaoh said we're going to destroy the Jews. Go on, Passover. So you have Pesach. Then you have the Persians at the time of Purim, the great Persian Empire. Haman said we're going to wipe out all the Jews in one day, men, women, and children. Genocide. Then you have Hanukkah. The Greeks said we're going to wipe out the Jews. Now, here's the question. What did Jews do on each of these holidays? Where great empires, echoing the words of old, came with their mutation and said we're going to wipe out the Jews. What did they do? So what do we eat on each one of these holidays? Think about it for a moment. You all know what are the delicacies? What's the delicacy on Pesach? What do we eat? Matzah. What else? Matzah balls. What do we eat on Purim? Hamantash. Hamantash is a weird named after Haman. Well, Haman, the Haman, the pastry. What do we eat on Hanukkah? The common denominator is all unhealthy food that Hanukkah. A lot of cholesterol. But so you're all familiar. Hanukkah, Pesach, Purim, matzo balls, jelly donuts, cookies, Hamantash. So now you have to stop for a moment and think. Three of the greatest empires in human history: ancient Egypt, Persia, and the Greeks. Each one of them said, we're going to crush up little Isaacs. We're going to just choose them. We'll end right here. And what happens? It's not that we survived. We took three of the greatest empires in human history, and said they're going to destroy it, and we turned them into matzo balls and jelly donuts and cookies. So, yes, there is. We have to fight. We have to embrace our duties, and the best way to fight anti-Semitism is not to hide your Jewishness, it's to walk with more Jewish pride, to embrace Judaism stronger, the path of Abraham and Sarah. But you say, oh, it's big trouble, there is big trouble. But just like in the past, the greatest empires, we turned them into matzo balls, jelly donuts, and cookies. Soon there'll be some new kind of Ahmadinejad waffle or whatever. So we have reason to be joyful and to celebrate and to walk with pride, because at the end of the day, we're just going to have a new holiday, a new celebration. May it be speedily in our days remain.
Let's give a real round of applause for our Rebbe. Rabbi Golan, Rabbi Greenberg, and Nazi help you with tremendous success in your shlichus with your family there in Stanford, and all those that are on college campuses, Rabbi Tzemach, Moshe Feller, McAllister, and Groveland, and other places. Friends, we heard it tonight from Rabbi Greenberg. The Rebbe, as we started this evening, gave us all a match to kindle our souls with the light, with the warmth of Judaism. Take that match that you received tonight. Ignite your souls, your hearts, your homes with the beauty, with the love, with the light of Judaism. Take that match, hand it to your friends, to your neighbors, to your co-workers, and together let us brighten the world with the light of Judaism. The light that we bring will chase away all that evil darkness and will usher in yet tonight the coming of Mashiach. Amen. Your friends, thank you so much for coming out tonight and being here with us. Thank you. Remember, next week from tonight is the 3rd of Tammuz, a special day to connect with your neshama, with your soul, to connect with the Rebbe, do an extra mitzvah, and let us make the Rebbe proud. And just a technical announcement, the program will end momentarily. Following the program, those that would like can join us for the mitzvah service, and then we'll have till about 9:30, 9:45, an informal part right in here with Rabbi Pittsburgh. Thank you all. God bless you. I'm Yisrael Chai. I'm Mashiach now.
Nice to see you. Stay healthy and well. Thank you. Thanks.